From the Gold Coast era, artisanal small-scale mining has been a part of the country's employment fold, holding about 40% in direct and indirect jobs. Its socio-economic advantages, job creation, impacts on the local economy cannot be downplayed, supporting estimated livelihoods of some 4.5 million of the population. In 2019, Ghana took the top spot as Africa's #1 gold producer, overtaking South Africa with that enviable position. Per data from the World Bank, Ghana exported 158 tons of gold in 2018, about 15% increase over the previous year, and ahead of South Africa, which produced 139.3 tons. As of June 2022, the country's earning from gold increased by 13.1%, amounting to some $3 billion. At the moment, Ghana's mining sector contributes about 5.5% to the country's GDP, approximately 41% of the country's total export earnings, and 14% of total tax revenues. Of this volume, artisanal small-scale mining contributes about 40%. From data, Ghana is back at the top again as Africa's largest gold producer, with domestic gold production shooting up by 32% from the 2.8 million ounces in 2021 to 3.7 million ounces in 2022. Bompieso and Amwanda in the Prestia-Huni Valley municipality are just two of the many mining communities in Ghana. Dotted along the town are several unregulated small-scale mining operators. Their take is the lack of jobs, hence resorting to this mining to eke out a living. From the process of mining the ore to the extraction of one of the world's most valuable metals, these miners work freely but under hazardous conditions, oblivious to the dangers to their health, the environment, and its ecosystems. Once the ore is mined out, it is transferred onto this conveyor, laced with mesh, applying running water. The mesh attracts the ore, or the ore settles on the mesh, and this is repeated several times to get an appreciable quantity of one's choice. This is where the chemical mercury comes in handy, being the easiest and less expensive means of collecting gold.
Mercury no say ne nti yakoba bia omoton na say no maye no di omoye nsa na enso yakoto nti yakoto ba ye guru ba ma na ati mercury na gusu yati mercury na gusu a na ya de nsu agusu na ya de nsa kanuma na ye wie yi ahwea na free mercury no biem na ensa abaka gold na ni mercury no na yi gold na free mercury no so nti yi gold ni free ma na abaka gold.
Without any protective gear, the minute pieces of gold mixed in soil and sediments are mixed with mercury to form the amalgam.
After mercury na chi gold na wie na ya hwegu ragi ya hwegu na ye mia mercury no be free gold na kawe na mercury na san bad fu di wi na ya sade mercury
no nyina ya de yansa na ya de
yansa ya de yansa.
Omo yiro omo ye man because this year say no unemployment na doso nti sama ayi old man in here da on ya ye force say aban betumi aboa ne ma ya ye no community mining no Ababua ma amrante bebre nya adwuma ye.
Since the collapse of the Bonsa factory and Aposo glass factory, established by Ghana's first president, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, mining has become the most lucrative business or sought-after business in this side of town. Until it collapsed, the factories employed many Ghanaians, particularly people from the Wasa area in the western region. Years down the line, with a high unemployment rate, the youth has resorted to illegal mining using harmful chemicals such as mercury in the extraction of gold due to the lack of modern technology and resources. Next is the burning or heating process of charcoal fire, which vaporizes mercury to extract the gold.
After all the work that they've done, that amalgam is the most valuable thing that they have. It contains the gold. So you won't just handle it anyhow. A lot of times this is handled by either the owner of the concession or the most senior person. And then he won't leave it out there for somebody to steal it from. Typically he will put it away and take it to where he treats it finally to get the gold out. And where do you think this will happen? Where there is fire. Because he's going to burn it. Where there is fire. If he has a kitchen in the house, very likely in the kitchen, where you find the women and the children more often than not. So he burns, puts this on fire, burns this up, the mercury evaporates and leaves the gold. And the mercury tends to settle on everything in the environment. So the cooking pots, the plates they use, the spoons, whatever you have, get to be the recipient of the mercury. Who are going to be the most vulnerable in this instance? It's the women in the house and the children. They didn't get involved in any small-scale mining, but in the end, they suffered the brunt of it.
Experts also say residue of mercury released into the environment contaminates the soil and water, which affects residents living in and around such areas whose daily lives depend on them.
Just as it has a low melting temperature, it has a low condensation temperature as well. So it gets to come back to its liquid form again fairly quickly. And then it settles on surfaces, on the surface of land, on leaves, in water bodies, wherever it finds. So that's why it becomes dangerous. If you ingest mercury, it's regarded as a toxin, but a neurotoxin, so it affects your nerves more than anything else.
It can be in the soil for so many years, its half-life is in millions of years. So it will remain there. You can, even if it enters water, the fish in the water can even swallow it, and it will remain in that fish. And if you take that fish as a human being, it will enter your system, and it can accumulate into your system. And if it is beyond a certain threshold, that is why you start to have the effects.
Mercury does not degrade in the environment. It can accumulate in the atmosphere and pass through the food chain, which can cause irreversible brain damage and disrupt ecosystem health. Laboratory technicians in Ghana are also alarmed with results they are getting in the labs over time.
Mercury is a heavy metal and it does not dissolve. So if mercury is washed into the water body and you end up fetching that water to use for your cooking or any activity, you add more to your system and that will exceed the mercury threshold in the body and at the end affect you. We are gradually getting to the stage where even students boycott examination for mining activities just because they will get money that they will depend on today, and that will affect the future, because if this trend continues, it means in future we'll not even get people training to become medical laboratory professionals to even help in the diagnosis of diseases in the hospital to give us better care.
Heavy chemicals including the mercury ends up damaging the nephrons, as we call them, so eventually damaging the kidney. So once the kidney cannot perform its way, then the result is that you have a chronic kidney damage. Again, some of these ones deposit in the brain and then causes the neurological deficit, so you do not understand a young man beginning to present with some memory losses.
So, from the medical perspective, what are the consequences of this?
Because the metals are deposited in the lungs, it impairs oxygen exchange within the lung. So you see that they come with breathlessness, they are unable to breathe, and then they have mortalities. Again, it can deposit in the intestines, it impairs absorption of food and other things.
Prolonged and high exposure to mercury inhalation causes damage to the nervous, digestive, and immune systems.
Women who become pregnant, it could affect unborn children, who then become the most vulnerable because they are the smallest, and so they will have the most of the impact. So even before they are born, they have these impacts, these neural impacts already.
Named after a city in Japan, where it was first observed in humans and animals that ingested fish with high levels of mercury and shellfish caught in the Minamata Bay, the Minamata disease's notable symptoms are convulsion, loss of maxillary coordination, and damage to vision, speech, and hearing. For pregnant women exposed to mercury, they are also susceptible to giving birth to babies with congenital disease.
As a pathologist, in the case study involving pregnant women, and then I needed to remove their babies. And when I did, I realized that there were deformities on these babies. In fact, one was in western region. It was quite interesting to me. These heavy metals, when accumulated in the placenta in this form, can also lead to this, what we call mutations or chromosomal aberrations and so forth, causing all these congenital anomalies.
For the health professionals, this issue is beyond hospital and health. Quite recently, the UN envoy to Ghana raised a health alert cautioning against the use of mercury in the mining industry. The continuous use of the harmful chemical in Ghana's mining space contravenes the Minamata Convention, with the major highlights being the ban on new mercury mines, the phase-out of existing ones, the phase-out and phase-down of mercury use in a number of products and processes, control measures on emissions to air and on release to land and water. But the question is, what will be the cheaper alternative for these miners to use in the extraction of their gold away from mercury? But the University of Mines and Technology UMAT seems to have a solution to the problem, the Sikabuchia.
We set the system up by turning on the LPG gas. With our matches or any lighter, we light the fire on, and then we regulate the blower. The blower helps to sustain the fire and also helps to maintain the temperature, because gold melts above 1000 degrees Celsius, so we want to ensure that we maintain the temperature in here. We pour the concentrate into the crucible, which is called black. We put the black in here, or the concentrate, and then we add about 2 or 3 chemicals to the concentrate. But even prior to putting the concentrate or the black here, we pre-mix them in a container with the chemicals. This is a silica sand, we have the niter, and then we have the soda ash. Together we put them together, we can call it borax. So we have borax system. So we mix them with the concentrate and we pour them into the crucible. And then with our preheated furnace, which we make sure that it's at the right temperature. Before we use the tongue, make sure you have your gloves on. We use the tongue to pick it up, to pick our crucible, and then we open it up and we lower it into the furnace. When you check after a period and you find out that the gold has turned into molten, we use the tongue to pick the crucible with the melt or the molten gold in there with the dirt, and then we pour it into the metallic mold or the crucible. Now we allow it to cool down for a period of time, and then what you do is that because gold is heavier, gold tends to settle at the bottom of the mold. In terms of carats, you can get up to 23.5 carats of gold.
Developed in the 90s and piloted in specific mining areas, the Sikabuchia has a higher gold recovery rate and more environmentally friendly.
One of the reasons why the miners have not adopted it much is that after doing a pilot trial, some of them will end up producing large quantities of concentrate. Now, when they produce the large quantity of concentrate, most of them do not have the patience to even pan it further to get the small amount of concentrate that we could subject to direct smelting. So, because the time it takes for them to pan further to get the concentrate, the right amount of concentrate for them, they just decide to go along with their old method of getting their gold by adding mercury to the volume, the match concentrates. They just add it and then get their stuff. So one patient of the miners not being patient with the process is one of the key challenges. The other challenges too is that the mineralogy also changes. The mineralogy, in terms of when we talk of mineralogy, the composition of the ore changes, and therefore it is also difficult to have a one-fit chemicals in terms of reagent to undertake the direct smelting.
According to Solidaridad, an international charity with focus on fighting poverty and advocating for sustainable production, over 252 tons of mercury is released into the environment per year in sub-Saharan Africa through the activities of artisanal small-scale miners.
You want to try 8 million anambwa 8 Ghana so 800 so on ma 700 odu be so a omutumite so pa ma bia ba 600 enti enjina fa akro dem ba bi pa se yeto ne de anya fa akro so ene yeto no you on ma na nimpa auto gold no bia wa kone nchen se me pese me de mayi kakra ba pese me ye den me ye enti nimpa auto gold no kwa bia obafa so a obenya sa mercury na ama no obenya ama na so de ayre we dia aye aduma no na o bia auto gold na akwa.
I sought answers from the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, on the policy regime surrounding the importation and use of mercury in Ghana, especially in the artisanal small-scale mining sector.
We have a legacy on our hands that dates back that has created all these problems when it comes to the use of mercury. You may recall that in 1933, pre-colonial era, there was a ban, there was a law called the Mercury Law, where the use of mercury was banned by the colonial masters. And in this case, it was viewed as an attack on small-scale gold mining. So effectively, small-scale gold mining was banned in this country, Gold Coast. Then the idea was to promote large scale, which were multinationals, to the disadvantage of the locals doing the small scale mining. 56 years on, 1989, per the PNDC law 217, 218, and 219, mercury was disbanded. So the use of mercury was legalized. So was small scale mining. The unfortunate event then was, yes, it was a good decision to allow for local exploration and production of gold in small scale. The regulations there to regulate the activities was not forthcoming. It wasn't in there. So the law was passed, and since then up to today, mercury is in use. Mercury is not banned in this country in gold mining, small scale gold mining. So the menace has come to catch up with us.
How well can the purchasing and distribution regime be regulated to cut down unauthorized sale and use of the chemical in unapproved areas.
The importers will apply, and EPA would like to know who is the end user, who is going to do. So the end user may give the importer the clearance, and we look at that. And then we also look at where you are importing it from, for us to build the data on the influx or the bringing in of these substances. So ideally, the user is supposed to be the miner who needs it for the amalgam, to work on the gold. So, and here we are, because of illegal activities within that same enclave, you get people getting hold of them and then utilizing them without proper cost to proper handling and discharge or disposal of these materials. So the end users themselves are the abusers across the country. We do have influx of this mercury coming in without having proper records on them, and then also policing them. So what we're doing at EPA is to collaborate with the customs alongside with our borders to get hold of these illegal mercuries. And even when they find themselves itself in the country, we have mechanism to trace most of these items, and we apprehend people, culprits who are indulged in this illegal mercury trade. So yes, the evidence is overwhelming. It's out there. It's clear. It's notorious that mercury challenge is on our hands.
Ready to let go of the practice. However, the concern is how to get a cheaper alternative for their work, which in turn would save their wives, sisters, daughters, and children.
Gold na mercury na gold mercury na use mercury no so dia getting kase as mercury no weaking kwara no ya dia ha ni panel system na wonu ayene kwara ne ekwan bia o mefa so a o mbetumi achi gold no chise mercury na ti mercury ne dia no ya dia na alana omoye mining na share omoye ofa mo wane baba jono mercury na no use we say ka aban no betumi aboa na ebia se mercury no tse ne omo kan ya de yenye research but ne omo kan yete se ne ba ya ha mercury sisi aban no betumi aboa ne me yenya bibia betumi aboa ne ma ebia be yi mercury no so.
Aligning with the Minamata Convention, government, through the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, introduced the gold catcher, rated with an over 90% gold recovery rate.
This equipment does not use mercury, and it uses very little amount of water. Run it through spirals, and then you are able to get your gold trapped at the base. From there, it has a smelter which you can use. So basically, you put it in the smelter and extract it without the use of any mercury at all. The double advantage is, one, the increased recovery, and also the absence of use of mercury. So government is actively pushing this. So for all the community mines that have been launched, government is urging them to use this equipment.
Bio-based products that are also effective in gold catcher, as gold catcher, they serve the same purpose as mercury, and we at EPA have permitted most of them. So gradually, people are moving away from, and we're trying to promote these products. After all, they are biodegradable, and they do not contain the kind of arsenic substances that are so injurious to human health. So we're trying hard to do that.
But of concern to these artisanal small-scale miners, funding and the capacity to handle modern technology as a safer means is also a challenge.
And they introduced what we call the direct smelting method. Sikabushia, they call it. During the trial, people were happy with it, but then again, it tended to be a bit expensive. And again, they needed to refine it a bit to ensure that it was a package which was easy to handle. It's quite expensive. The base one is about $100,000. The question is, what's in it for them to want to use it? The attraction is that if you have material with free gold, a typical small-scale mining operation using mercury could recover anywhere between 40 to 50% of the gold in the material. But this equipment can recover up to 90%.
According to Dr. Akon Akoto-Apao of the Eastern Regional Central Hospital, the country must step up the tide. Now, the country is faced with a double-edged sword. Aside the enormity of mercury released daily into the atmosphere, another chemical, more poisonous, has found its way into the sector.
We've noticed a trend that there's been the introduction of use of cyanide from particularly Burkina Faso into the country, into the extraction of gold by small-scale miners, and we do not want to encourage that. We'd rather the small-scale miners stop using the mercury and migrate to the mercury-free operations. The reason is that cyanide is used by the large-scale operators, and it's very effective at recovering gold, but it is deadly poison. It's known to be one of the most rapidly lethal poisons. So it'll kill you very fast. I'm sure we've heard about instances where there was spillage of cyanide on the mines, and it just got into water bodies nearby and killed virtually all the fishes in the water. It will treat humans no differently. It will basically eliminate humans who will take in the cyanide just as well. So we don't want it to be a thing that is handled by just anybody who doesn't know what he's doing. So this is being discouraged. Actually, within the framework of the law, we don't even provide for it because we don't think small-scale miners are capable of handling this.
Could some of these disability conditions found in Ghana now be associated with mercury use? Studies are ongoing to establish the direct linkage and impacts, as well as the exact number of women and children affected by mercury intoxication. To play it safe, the Chief Executive of the Environmental Protection Agency, Dr. Henry Kokufu, is of the firm belief a ban on the substance must be enforced.
In order to curtail them, we are at a point where if we succeed in getting a reliable bio product, then we can go in and say, let's ban completely. And if you should ask me, yes, I'm for ban. A complete ban of use of mercury.
As of now, the destruction to the environment is of major concern to government, lovers of nature, and many well-meaning Ghanaians. So, even if that cannot be quantified now and hard to deal with, what about the unseen impact of the chemical, mercury, on the health of women and children who are not directly involved in the mining process, yet are living in such polluted areas across the country?